In today's video, we have an interview with myself and Louis Parkinson. And Louis is a fascinating character. I've known him through the competition climbing circuit in the UK and also as another professional climbing coach. And what I think really makes Louis stand out, and one of the primary reasons why I wanted to interview him, was that he has a different approach of how he sees climbing performance, climbing training, technique, and really actually life in general as well. So in this interview, we delve through a whole number of different areas of his life. We talk about his early years and how he first came to climbing. We talk about his learning process and how he sees challenge and what it is to him and what makes him so good at this kind of challenge thing and what he gets from that. We also talk about micro failures and how this fits into the bigger picture with the process and working towards those goals that we also might have. Again, in that same vein, we talk about the balance of indoors versus outdoors and how both myself and Louis are working with people, how we see that indoors versus outdoors transfer work and what we get from that process. And we also look at how climbing is evolving and coaching as well, where it's going, what we think the future looks like, and lots of interesting areas around that. So I hope you look forward to and enjoy today's episode. I'm going to leave you now with the interview with myself and Louis Parkinson. Don't forget that if you want to get more of this, just click on those subscribe buttons, whether you're listening on our podcast or you're watching over on YouTube. And we will see you again very soon. Okay, hello to everyone who is listening and watching on our combo of podcast, vodcast. Me and Louis were just talking about whether we should call this a vodcast with the vodka connotations. Today, we have a very special and much awaited guest by me, Louis Parkinson, who is... Yeah, say hello to everyone, Louis, so they can hear you.
Hello, folks. Nice to see you. Hear you. Either. It's all good.
And Louis is a mixture of professional climber, climbing athlete, and climbing coach. He runs up Heads Catalyst Climbing down in London, and he is very well known on the internet in inverted commas. Because I think that kind of encompasses online videos, Instagram, Facebook, everything. And what's your handle on? I can never remember it on the internet.
Yeah, it's at Captain Cutloose is the usual one I go for. By the way, I'd never describe myself as a professional climber. I confidently describe myself as a professional show-off and a professional coach, yes, but professional climber, no, not so much.
Ah, that's funny. But I'm quite broad and relaxed about the professional climber elements of it, because I see it as being, if you make your living predominantly within climbing some kind of manner, I call someone a professional climber.
That's nice. I like that definition more. Yeah, I'm a professional climber.
Yeah, because I think it defines away from people that are amazing climbers but have no capacity whatsoever to make their living out of their climbing. That's, for me, is the differentiation.
That's a much better differentiation, because I had it in my head with that much stricter one. We've already got off on a tangent. I like this. Yeah, I had this really strict definition in my head of a professional climber. So, okay, I could say I'm a professional, or I'm a sponsored climber, or I'm a professional Instagram climber or something like that. But a professional climber, for some reason, this really strict definition in my head was when you are solely a person who is paid to go around the world and just do hard climbs outdoors all the time. That's the only thing a professional climber can mean. But I much prefer your definition, because I think that, yeah, like you say, allows a lot more flexibility, how much capacity you have to actually go out and do stuff all the time. Okay, I've changed my mind. I am a professional climber. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, no, definitely. You definitely get that badge. Get a badge on, wear it with pride. You're all the way in, Louis. So obviously, as I've said at the start, is that, Louis is a really competent, experienced climber and coach. And I knew of Louis through things like Facebook, videos, Instagram, first off. But the first time that I ever really came across you in person, as far as I remember, and it really impressed me, was down in London. and I think I might have been route setting down there, and you were coaching at Vauxhall. And
sounds like me, yeah.
the real reason that you stood out to me was that you were running a coaching session, but you were running it not in your native language. You were running it in French.
Oh, yeah.
And this really stuck out because I understand French well enough to listen to, and I can see that you're not 100% native fluent French.
Okay.
But you went that extra mile to coach the person you're working with in French because that was the best platform. Tell me about this, Lou. Like, what was happening here?
So it actually worked out really well. I'm glad you. I thought I was worried you were going to say, and you're clearly so good at French. Like, no, you just don't speak as you speak slightly worse French than I do. I don't speak particularly good French. I should, by all rights, because my dad is a native Frenchman. I've had French spoken in my household since I was young. Annoyingly, I think I speak it well enough. I sound like I know what I'm doing for a couple of minutes, and then after a while, sort of people realize, his grammar's all over the place. And but I like to practice my French, and I was very friendly with this the student Didier who I was coaching. His English is perfectly fine, but we already talked a lot about in the session about. We were just catching up and talking about other things that we do to challenge ourselves, and the idea of challenging ourselves in climbing and how it's something that we should try and seek out. And eventually it got around to, I was talking about French and I want to be better at it. So he proposed saying, how about you coach me in French from now on, and then I'll give you tips all the way through. So it was kind of, it's nice that I come off looking really good in this, but it was a total back and forth thing of I was teaching in French because he was coaching my French while I coached his climbing. It worked really, really well. So really enjoyed doing that. We carried on that way for a good few months. Ideally, the aim was from the start of the lesson till the end of the lesson, only in French. So part French lesson for me mostly.
Yeah. I mean, I think as I've gone on further years from that, and it feels like that was maybe 4 years ago or so, something like that.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, is that I think I've become more in tune with the people that I've come across in the climbing industry, whether they're, coaches or climbers or anything like that, is that you can often find these markers like this incident where you took that opportunity to go out of your way, place yourself in an uncomfortable position and consistently do it to apply to improve your French. These people, it's down to mindset and how they apply themselves, and they see things and they see opportunities and discomfort in a different way. Mm-hmm. And you often see this in high performers. I don't know about you if you agree with this, but I feel like it's a mindset thing.
Oh man, hugely, yeah. I feel like I'm still learning about it all the time, but I think the skill that I've always prided myself on is that I really, really like challenges. If something is challenging, that's the bit I enjoy, the bit that challenges me. Not necessarily, obviously, yes, I like the successful bit, but for me, the entire chase, but even before climbing, even if it was just little tasks I was doing or hobbies that I had, I always kind of got pretty obsessive about small things and trying it again and again and again to try and get better at stuff just because, I like being challenged. I've got into doing a lot of hanging leg raises at the moment, the full ones where you go toes all the way to the bar. They're horrible, man. But yeah, I'm still learning a little bit about this because I'd do a set of them and then I'd be really tired and I'd sort of sit there for ages going, I'm just going to rest until I'll just rest a bit longer. I don't know, I'll just rest a bit longer. And then eventually I was, am I resting until it's going to feel easy? It's probably not going to feel easy. You're going to have to rest for ages. And even then it's not easy. So tried to then switch the mindset to, I want it to be hard. Okay, let's try again. And then suddenly I was like, really fun again. I forgot. It's supposed to be a challenge. I like it. So I think this idea of enjoying being challenged is something that we learn in climbing. And I think maybe it was something that I had a little bit before then, but I think that was the main thing that I found so addictive about climbing was, this feeling of being challenged constantly. And as soon as you finish on one challenge, you forget about it immediately because there's another challenge to do. I think that's kind of what's kept me fueled for all of these years of climbing. I'm guessing you're the same way then. You enjoy being challenged by stuff, right?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And it's probably one of the most rewarding parts of climbing. And it's the only thing so far that I've not kind of given up on because I got good at it, because I consistently see myself as actually not very good at climbing. So it's non-stop challenging because I can't seem to get to the end point Whereas I think if I was in the position of being like Adam Ondra and kind of being seen as the world's best, I feel like I almost might actually give up and just stop there because like, oh, I've won the game here. So this isn't challenging anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested to see where other people's kind of, challenge path came from and how their mindset fits around that.
So I was thinking about something else entirely, because you said something interesting a second ago where I think it's consistent between the two of us. And I wondered if it was more to do with us being coaches and constantly assessing all these different skills and realizing how much we can practice and perfect things. I also wouldn't rate myself as a very good climber. I think maybe, or however much you and I talk about, no, you shouldn't compare yourself to other people and all this stuff. Yeah, we compare ourselves to these amazing climbers. And I'm not that good at climbing either. Do you think that's consistent with just looking at climbing really closely all the time and being coaches? Because we're not bad. We're pretty good climbers.
Yeah. Is it? I think I'm not sure that it's directly tied with being a climbing coach, although it is on your daily kind of plate every day, being reminded of, and you have so much contact point with so many very, very good climbers that it reminds you of it. But I wonder whether it's more whether you're a sort of what I call like a journey focused climber. So you're constantly in the process. And so you constantly like evaluating yourself compared to where this ideal would be in the future. And you're like, well, I'm miles off that thing. So actually you mark yourself back down and kind of do that. It's almost like a humble handicap. You kind of knock yourself further and handicap yourself down and go, I'm just not that good. I need to work better, more efficiently, harder, more intelligently, whatever it is. And so that makes you apply yourself every day a bit better.
I like journey focus. That's a really nice way of putting it.
Rather than always just being about the goal, basically.
Yeah. Well, I thought we were probably going to end up talking about this because I don't set specific goals that much. I think, you're exactly right describing it as journey focused. When I say, the challenging bit is, and like being challenged by these climbs is what's always been really, really motivating for me. Yeah, now I think on it, I think that is the only thing that motivates me about it. Because I'm sure that there are like climbs that I think of, it'd be cool to go and do that climb. But I've never set any specific goals in competition or climbing outdoors or anything like that. It's always just been, I want to go climbing and be challenged. And here we are many years later. So not the most efficient way to get good at climbing, I don't think. I think goal setting probably does help quite a lot. But I've had a very enjoyable journey so far, I suppose.
Was there any, so you clearly love challenge and it kind of came across as something that you relished almost, right from the start. Like when I was kind of researching before this interview today, I saw an interview where you'd said that when you first started climbing, you were just rubbish at it, like, right from the, the first opening gates.
Oh yeah.
Is there a sort of a common thread that before you started climbing or in other parts of your life, you'd had a practice thing of, I love challenges? Were you always taking on challenges in, I don't know, school or chess or other sports or other hobbies? Was there?
So weirdly, no, I'd say sports, no, not really. I did try other sports. Like I remember trying cricket for a bit and hockey, but never really enjoyed sports that much. I did spend a lot of time in various different ways. Like first, when I was younger, it was like drawing and painting a little bit. When I was like a young teenager, Warhammer with the painting the figurines. Yeah, man, I sunk a lot of hours into that. And then later still, I got really, really into painting and sketching and drawing, but always in this weirdly obsessive way. Because I found myself doing it with other tasks. And I think I did do this when I was younger, that I can apparently like mess something up and try it again without getting bored for like a really long time, apparently, with really menial, boring stuff. So then I'd like apply it to painting, and it was like looking really, really closely and getting really involved in the fine details of it. And then like many hours would go by with me just not realizing how absorbed I was into it. And I think it's the same sort of habit, which I then like lapse into when I'm working on a project. Like I'm really rubbish at calling it a day and leaving it and like, being smart about a climb and going, oh yeah, I've got like very little skin left. Come back tomorrow. It'll be better. I really like just the process of trying again and again and again and making small adjustments. I'm not entirely sure why. Yeah, like I say, there were like other little things that I used to do. And I remember having loads of little hobbies, like, all those little like crafty ones like Connects and Meccano and stuff. And I do remember getting like really absorbed for a really long time each day doing them. But then, I think I'm quite lucky to have discovered climbing. I was like, this is something that I can like put that energy into, which I hadn't really had as much in my life up to that point, really social. So I'm going to meet loads of cool people. And something which is like active and healthy for me because I hadn't really been into sports much either. And still has all of this really cool stuff. And also like visually climbing's cool. Like it looks cool. So it was like it was a really, really big thing for me to get involved in. I was really, really happy when I first found it.
Yeah. After this interview, I'll have to send, I've realized we've got another thing in common.
Oh yeah.
I did a lot of Warhammer painting when I was a kid as well. I'll send you photos of my Warhammer figures. I can't believe that you're into it as well.
Yeah, which ones did you go for? I didn't go for the, not the space ones. I went for the like, there were like vampires and werewolf and zombies and all this stuff. Did you get those ones as well? Which ones?
So I was into Eldar. So they were like...
Oh, the other one. The futuristic elves with ray guns.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a good one. Yeah, send me that photo after, man.
Yeah, that's funny. So did you have any kind of like... Because I often can like talk about this stuff with, other climbers and trying to get them into this kind of way of thinking and seeing the rewards from being challenged by people and things like that. And I try and describe it to people to get them into this way of thinking as taking every day and trying to give yourself or trying to get yourself to experience micro failures. So setting out to have tiny, tiny little manageable things that you don't achieve or challenge you or you fail on because it feels so digestible because you know that like in 2 days time you probably will do it or in a week's time you probably will be, so it's more manageable. Is there anything that you've going to try and help other people with on that front?
The idea of just being okay with multiple failures before you succeed at something. Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the skills that I would say, like a lot of lessons, it usually comes up. I'll talk about saying that, strength is fun to talk about, technique, really cool to talk about. Mindset in climbing is often the first stumbling block that gets loads of people. It's obviously a huge one for more advanced climbers to work on, but often beginner climbers over and over again, I see it in lessons that the main mistake they're making is just not even a mistake that they're making, but they're just not as accustomed with the idea of if I try it 1,000,000 times and nothing happens, that I should keep trying. It seems really silly. The logical thing is I fell off it 10 times. I'm now really tired. No, it's obviously not going to happen. Yeah. But very often, no, breaking that cycle and getting them to, in a climbing circumstance, it's often just that first win and like really clear explanation of, just to make sure we're all aware of this. You really didn't think you were going to do it. Then you tried it a bunch of times and hooray, you did do it. That is the sort of thing that you can start passing on to other stuff. There's some, I was trying to think of stuff I do outside of climbing. I was like, there's only like one thing I've recommended to other people as like a fun thing to do. I mean, I suppose slacklining would be a big one that I'd recommend to people because that's like a constant, it's the same thing as climbing. It's like really addictive to have this feeling of balancing on it. And that's the win that you get from it. But it's really hard to balance on it. So you fall off over and over again. I think slacklining is a really good one just because of, especially if you have it low to the ground and you start it nice and easy. It's so accessible in terms of like the energy you expend trying and trying again and how long it takes to set up to try again. It's like no time at all. You can have micro failure after micro failure after micro failure, and you can see that you're steadily getting better and better and better at it. So yeah, slacklining I think would be a really nice one for people to try. The other one, which I'm not going to show on the camera because it looks really silly, but I got one of those. This is for lockdown only. I got one of those reflex balls. Do you know these things? So it's like a band around your head and then an elastic string connected to a ball, and you practice like pow, pow, pow. And it's so much fun. And again, like it was really strange that as soon as I tried that in the first lockdown a few months ago, I'd been without climbing for ages and hadn't really found anything that was fulfilling this thing of I really like this process of like challenge, try and try again. So my partner got me that reflex ball, and immediately, like first time I tried it, I was like, oh, well, this is the next 5 hours sorted. I'll carry on with this for ages. And yeah, it drove her nuts. So I've got quite good at it. But that again was a really, really nice, fun one to play with. And I think it's now that I think of these two examples of the reflex ball or slacklining, anything which is quite enjoyable to actually do, like getting repetitive hits on the ball or bouncing on the slack line, if it's actually quite pleasant to do in itself and it's really easy to like set up and try again if you do fall off, then I think that sort of stuff works really, really well. Is this sort of stuff you meant, or am I way off the mark? I think
no, that's exactly
what you meant. Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what I was thinking about. Because essentially you get over, and this is the bit where I always try and like remind people to also kind of step away and take the big picture, in that over 5 years, over 10 years, over 20 years, if you practice this kind of stuff with these micro failures and challenges and things, is you develop so much essentially confidence in that system and that process and the enjoyment out of it, that when you come across something further down the line in 5 years, 10 years time, that is genuinely very, very hard for you, and you are having a nightmare for a year, maybe even 2 years on this thing, you trust the process so much because you've done it for 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
You kind of keep going. And that's when you see some really special stuff, actually, when people break through these barriers or, performance plateaus or whatever.
I completely agree, man. Like I think exactly the same thing, that often, I assume you think about this sort of stuff as well, but there are a lot of climbers who are measurably strong enough and good enough to do all kinds of like, groundbreaking stuff, or at least like climbing V15s and 16s quite regularly, but not that many do, proportion to how many are like strong enough and good enough potentially. Part of it is like being able to get out and do the climbs, having the access to it. But then I feel like a lot of it is just the mindset of it, that there's a very big difference between a climber who is strong enough and good enough to do something, but hasn't necessarily become as familiar with that process that you and I are talking about, and having the confidence that process is going to work, and someone who walks up to a hard boulder being just as strong and capable as the other person, but knows, based on all of the experience they've had in the past, building these repeated experiences of micro failure, and then success, and that one was a bit longer, and that one was longer still. And they would walk up to a boulder knowing, without any doubt at all, which makes it a lot harder to climb when you're doubting that you are strong enough to do it. They know it without any doubt at all that they are going to do this boulder. And I think that is the slight difference between success and failure in a lot of circumstances, no?
Yeah. Another question for you is, how have you found the, because you live down in London, you predominantly climb indoors on, plastic PE holds, board at home at the moment, is how have you found the balance between indoor and outdoor rock and that transfer process for you as a climber? Because I think even more so than me, you've got a heavier balance for indoor stuff, just because of being in London and it being your job and being in indoor walls a lot. What's that process look like for you?
So the whole like progression into outdoor climbing for me was quite tricky. I think I'd climbed I'd climbed outdoors a couple of times. Like I went on a trip once, and I must have been doing like the easiest of trad grades when I was like, this is probably in my first 6 months of climbing or something. But other than that, I don't think I'd been outdoors on rock really at all until a good 6 or 7 years into my climbing. Which is like, really no outdoor climbing is not that common, I don't think. And I think the longer it went without me going outdoors, and with everyone else saying, oh, it's really difficult, you'll enjoy it, I was like, oh, I do like the challenge, but I also do quite like the process that I'm in. This one's familiar. I'm used to like the repeated experience that I'm having here. That's quite nice. First time I went outdoors, got my ass kicked. And then same thing for the second and the third and the fourth time. I think everyone usually has a similar thing, that the holds aren't as obvious, and they're usually smaller, and it's scary, and the grades are harder. So it took, but it quickly, I think once I got past my ego would be the thing, because I was out there like, I think, I was out with friends. I'm used to being like, we climb indoors together. I'm the strong one. I enjoy being good at this. And then we went outdoors like, I am the worst at this by a long way. That kind of sucked. But then after a couple of sessions, like, what? This is just getting in my way of being better at this. So managed to, again, just get into the pattern of, I enjoy being challenged by this. It's like a whole new learning curve that I had just been blindsided by, but great, I guess learn all this stuff again. Cool. It took a good few years to feel like I was in any way as comfortable on rock as I was indoors. Now I do feel a fair bit more comfortable. As in, I feel like I can climb with a similar fluidity and confidence as I do indoors when I'm on a rock just above a pad. But in terms of actually how often I do it, I want to do it more. I live in London and I also don't have a car. So for a good year and a half, maybe a couple of years, any outdoor trips I've done have either been a slightly longer one when me and some friends might rent a car and go and stay somewhere for a week, but that's maybe once or twice a year if I'm lucky. And other than that, maybe, obviously not now, but maybe once every other month, I might get a chance to, again, I'll rent a car, usually drive to Sheffield, like leave really early in the morning, drive to Sheffield, climb for the whole day, and then drive back again and get home in time for dinner. So not a lot of outdoor climbing, which is a shame because I really do enjoy it. And I kind of view, especially what I'm doing now, which is just like classic basic moves, this is going to apply really well to climbing on rock. So I hope anyway. I want to go and do more of it. But I enjoy all aspects of climbing. So I think that also does make it a lot easier that whilst I might say, it's terrible, I don't get to climb out on rock much at all, I really, really enjoy climbing indoors and swinging about on big coloured holds and coming up with interesting moves. I think there is definitely an element of it's my comfort zone, and I feel very physically safe from not falling and hurting myself on a rock to like be more creative and experiment and practice a little bit more. Whereas when I'm climbing on rock, it is very much, I just need to climb really, really, really well, no messing about or anything. I don't mind the balance so much, but I could probably do with a bit more climbing on rock if I wanted to do some more significant stuff, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting scenario you have, because I think I'm in many ways actually quite similar to you, that we both have a niche that we're seen as really good at in a certain kind of niche way of climbing, and we've really, I guess, mastered that style of climbing. And me and you have very different styles of climbing. We spent and put a lot of time into getting really good at certain stuff, and when we move outside of that, we'll inevitably see, the grade go down, performance expectations go down, the ability for us to apply, strength or fitness will go down. And I always find that there's this really weird balance between having a mindset where you love challenge and you want to kind of continually push yourself, but also being very attuned with this mastery thing, because it's so addictive when you really get to master something and you're like, whoa, I am in my groove now. I know this thing.
Yeah.
And you feel yourself getting dragged back into your mastery zone and going, no, come on, get in your uncomfortable zone. Don't get dragged back. And it's really interesting balance.
Yeah, it really is. I have no idea what I was about to say. No, you carry on, Tom. Sorry.
So as you kind of see, going forward with your climbing over the next 5 years or so, with that kind of balance of indoors versus outdoors, do you think that you will maintain that focus on more indoor climbing and going, I love competitions, this is my thing, this is what I get the best reward from, and that focus will remain? Or do you think it's a situational thing and it's just based on, lack of car, being in London, your work environment? What do you think going forward?
Well, so obviously I'm going to be really focused and training hard for the upcoming Olympics. They haven't sent me my invitation yet, but I assume it's like on its way. So I'm getting ready for that. But no, in all seriousness, I'm actually not that sure. Obviously, yes, it is entirely situational. But I'm trying to sort of like craft my, especially, I don't know if other people are finding the same thing, but with the world-changing pandemic, it's been somewhat of an opportunity to almost reset work habits and how we approach spending our time. And so I'd love to be able to set up my work balance in a way that I could have more time to pursue training more with more discipline, because I don't have a lot of time to do it in anything else but like stops and starts. So I quite like just doing it as, okay, well, I'll just climb the stuff I enjoy when I have time. So it'd be really nice to have more time to actually focus a bit more on some more focused training. As for how I'd use that, it's such a tricky question of, do you enjoy, because essentially it's, do you enjoy ticking off a boulder that you really like, or just being out in the nature, or do you enjoy more being with all your friends and climbing all the fun stuff with the big music and whoa, adrenaline? Man, I don't know. I was trying to find some way of choosing, but no, I really don't think I can. So I think I will always try and split my time quite equally. I've never been particularly in a position where like there's competitions every single day or anything like that. So yeah, if I could go to a competition every other week or something, and climb outdoors and train and stuff in the meantime, that sounds pretty awesome. I don't know if I'd ever decide to like specialize on one particular thing. I mean, I do, I suppose, specialize a little bit more as it gets nearer to particular events that I'm excited about. Like if there's a particular, if I'm going on like, okay, I had an upcoming trip to Switzerland. I knew there was a project that I wanted to try. So I did a lot less of my more competition style training and a lot more focus on just climbing a lot of projects very similar to the one that I wanted to do. And vice versa, if I know there's a competition coming up that I am quite excited about, then I might do quite a lot less just single hard projecting. I do quite like doing it, and I might do a bit more of it if it's of a style that I'm not that comfortable with, because I want to get a bit more well-rounded. But I might start doing a lot less of just hard overhanging board climbs and a lot more varied climbing under time pressure and things like that, just to get a bit more in the zone for comps. But other than that, I don't think I'll end up specializing much more in any way.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. It's funny because I was as you were answering that, I was thinking, oh, Louis totally squirming on this. I put him on the spot, and he's going, I don't know which one I want most. I think I want them all. I just want to do everything. So.
Pretty much, man. Yeah, I think that's the downside, which I'm well aware of, is that I think that's the other half of the phrase of jack of all trades, master of none. You can either be like super good at one thing, or you can be okay at a lot of stuff. And I quite like doing a lot of stuff. So in a particular way, I think I'll always have that nice niche of, if a swinging about problem comes up in a comp, that's going to be mine. But aside from that, I actually, nowadays I'm like really enjoying exploring, and maybe I'll end up doing some other disciplines of climb, but just within like different styles of boulder problem even, I'm really, really enjoying doing stuff which normally isn't my style. I wouldn't have expected it when I was younger, but I really like slabs. I didn't think I would, but I'm quite excited to then diversify a little bit more in outdoor climbing. And annoyingly, I still don't feel like I've had a competition yet where I climb as well on slabs as I feel like I'm now capable of doing. So I'll be happier when I start doing that as well. But no, I suppose generally my aim is to become a more and more well-rounded climber so that I can do better in all of these different things that I enjoy doing.
Sure. Well, I guess a question that kind of ties in with that, and anyone who's been watching, Louis, whether it's on video now or listening on podcasts, is that you are a really motivated, high energy individual, and I feel like a kindred spirit in you whenever I talk to you on the phone, or we do something like this, I'm like, yes, it's another person that just seems to go like 100 miles an hour all the time. But I am a really bad all in, all out, but then a burnout type person as well. How do you manage are you like all the time really high energy, or do you have a way of pulling it in or managing it? How do you do it all?
I feel like okay, so now that I'm like at home all the time, my housemates notice it as well. Louis looks really busy all the time. And like, yeah, usually when we're like having dinner or watching a movie, I've usually got my laptop just there, just in case, and occasionally like sending messages and stuff like that. So I think actually over time, I've got really weirdly good at just switching back and forth between, and I think my partner says she struggles to do this more of, no, if I'm going to work, then I need to get into work mode. I now work for a few hours and then I stop working and I wind down and now I'm not working. Whereas I think I'm weirdly quite happy with just switching between, okay, time to do some work, and okay, I'm relaxed again. There we go. Let's just carry on. So I think that helps quite a lot. I think over the course of the last few years running a business and stuff, I think I've learned to take things a bit less seriously. There's always like little difficulties to deal with, or there's even if there's nothing particularly like bad happening, it's still stressful and it's intense. I think I've kind of learned, either I can allow myself to be this stressed and tensed all the time, which doesn't seem like a good way to go about this, or I can start to consciously acknowledge that this isn't necessarily a particularly useful level of stress, and I can maybe try and bring my threshold down a little bit. So I think it would be those two things of gradually getting used to the intensity and learning. I like getting used to a certain level of height when you're climbing, of going, okay, yeah, this now feels kind of normal. And then just getting more comfortable with just switching back and forth between work mode and not work mode. But the other one for me, which I think would be the main one, is, and I assume for you as well, I really like my work. I really like everything that I do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm very, very lucky that the vast majority of it does not feel like work. So it makes it quite easy to carry on plugging away, especially if you take that mindset from earlier of, great, a repetitive challenge. Fantastic. This will keep me occupied for a bit. So I think those would be it. How about you? How do you manage it?
I'm not sure that I feel like I don't even know whether I manage it. I feel like I flow from one thing to another, like a small piece of driftwood on a raging river. And I'm kind of just going with the flow of where stuff has taken me. And I sort of see it as being like I have a high degree of responsibility towards saying, right now, the raging river is kind of my fault. I set my life up and my work and my family and my travel and everything up in that way. So I've got to accept that this is how it is. So I've got to be a happy piece of driftwood rolling around all over the place with it, and just take that and not just, complain about how I either have a lot on my plate, or I've got to try and find a lot of energy every day, or that I'm going to have to deal with some stressful situations. And I think it's like you, in that same thing of like acknowledging and reflecting on where I am now, how that feels, and being just a bit more used to it and dealing with it. And I don't spend a lot of time sort of questioning or going like, why is it me? Woe is me? Why is that stuff going wrong? This is so hard. I don't like this. I don't like that. Even though I could get on the phone to you probably every single day for the next 100 years, and I could complain at you about 10 things at the beginning of every day that I am not happy about.
Yeah.
But I don't let that get into my head too much, because that will feel really intimidating to be that driftwood in the raging river. So I'd rather just concentrate on being a happy little piece of driftwood in the raging river and keep going.
Such a good way of putting it, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, God, so it's well, you just have to, basically just keep going, putting one foot in front of the other, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So where do you think, in the broadest sense here, so sort of moving out from where Louis is right now, where do you think climbing is going?
I'm so worried that is what you asked before, and I just took it as this, let me tell you all about me. Is that what you asked before?
No, it was actually about you.
Okay, so climbing in general. Well, okay, so obviously we're going to have, it's now been delayed because the Olympics hasn't happened yet, but I assume a pretty big growth. I mean, already climbing is exploding in terms of popularity, and there's more climbing centers being built all the time. But I assume with the Olympics piling on top of that, there's then going to be a huge wave of people now interested in climbing. which it's hard to imagine where it's going to go, because there's so many different things that will start changing about it. Because I think for the last, let's say the last 50 years or the last 50 years or so, as climbing started emerging as a competitive sport and there started being prize money, even since that started, climbing has not changed a huge amount in terms of how much money is involved and the ethics around it and all this sort of stuff. And I wonder how complicated it might be when climbing can actually become, I imagine if you got paid as much for climbing as you did for becoming a footballer, or something like that. I wonder how that would change people's motivations, or would it mean that everyone just gets a lot better at climbing? Who knows? Because I think that's the other interesting thing we're going to see, is that we've seen pretty incredible developments in ability in climbing within quite a select, not select, but just at least smallish group of people in the grand scheme of how many people could be climbing. That's quite a small talent pool if we just look at the people who've climbed so far. If we suddenly had this huge growth in popularity where instead of it being quite uncommon that someone's into climbing, it's as common to climb as it is to play football, I imagine the level of things that we see done over the future will be pretty incredible, especially with coaching developing and there being more research behind it and there being more money involved in the training and the national teams. There's like a lot of positives that I'm really excited about. Sorry, I kicked the dog out earlier for being too noisy, and now she's like snuffling at the door trying to get back in. I'm just going to ignore her. I suppose the negative that a lot of people think about is outdoors climbing, and already we see loads of evidence of how. Whilst people might worry for the future of this huge growth in popularity, and now there's thousands of people going to the crags and all this sort of stuff, even with the numbers going now, it's clearly not good. There's already, huge changes to the environment around certain locations. There's, Magic Wood, Hampy, all these other places that are not doing that well from climbing tourism. It then, I think, becomes a much more complicated issue of not, okay, well, all the new climbers can't climb there or some stupid arbitrary rule like that. But it has to be like much, much better education about how we treat these areas. Because I think a lot of us, I wouldn't necessarily realize how guilty I've been of some of this stuff in the past. And I've gone to loads of places and just not realizing, oh, this is the main path, that slight little shortcut. It's not just a slight little shortcut. You're going to long-term massively mess the place up if everyone starts doing this. And so I think the way we start treating the outdoor areas needs to be orders of magnitude more careful than we have at the moment. But aside from that, I think it's all pretty positive. It's we're all going to have all these cool new people climbing with us. We're going to be able to go to bigger events. We're going to get to see it on the BBC more often. I think it's mostly good stuff. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think I feel relatively similar to the points that you've raised so far, and in the last 5 minutes. But I also think that I feel like there is a missing part of the development of the sport, which feels like it's really lagged in the last, I don't know, I feel like it's something like 3 to 5 years, in that I think we're not dealing well enough as a sport. I'm going to talk just for the UK because I have a little bit of impact with it in the US, but I just don't go there quite enough to get involved with commercial gyms out there. But I don't think that we're bringing through a big enough group and sort of section of grassroots, junior squads, teams, and consistency in that coaching and support and mentoring and access part of it. I feel like it's very, very good in that sort of 18 and above age where people are more, self-reliant and they just go on the wall, pay their entry, start getting involved with climbing, watch stuff on the internet, everything like that. But that younger group, aside from like a national team, and there are some, there's some junior squads. I know that you have a junior squad down in London. There's occasional pretty decent junior squads around the UK.
Yeah,
but I feel like we should be looking at the UK and going, there are 1,000+ kids in very, very good hands right now, and there just isn't.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. When you look at the scale of Well, like you say, how just in the US, for example, how the youth teams and the national youth leagues operate, and I think even the national youth league qualifiers and regional championships end up on ESPN sometimes. Like even that is a pretty big thing to watch, and every gym has really well organized teams with multiple levels of development. They all go to these like pretty well organized series of competitions over the year. It's quite different from the setup we have here. Lots of gyms do have usually some kind of junior team, I think, but I don't know if it's anywhere near what we see in the US, like you say. Yeah.
I think it needs more investment and resource going into it.
Yeah.
And I see it that, and I talk to gym owners quite a bit, is that I think they struggle with the economy and the kind of the financial layout and the structuring of this junior layout. And this is where it's kind of getting a bit stunted unless you can start to have big national governing body money come in right at the bottom at that junior level and massively structure it.
Maybe that's the difference, because now you mention it, I can't think of a junior team that, like working for a climbing center or my own junior team, I can't think of a junior team that I know of which operates in a way that makes the company or the climbing center that runs it profit in any way. I run it exactly at cost, and that means that it's hard to do much more. If you're running a climbing center without a huge amount of funds to put towards it, then you only ever spend money running a junior team, which is, like you say, not an easy way to have it develop into something better.
No, it's gonna. So that's my.
I suppose.
Sorry.
That'll be one of the benefits, I suppose, if we're getting more interest and potentially more finance into climbing. Then cool. So it goes to the junior teams.
Yeah, hopefully it will change with time, and hopefully me, you, other coaches in the UK can have some positive impact back into that with time. Okay, another not awkward, but difficult sort of question or a topic which I think needs to be addressed. And we spoke about this just quickly before we started this podcast, was that back last year there was a big sort of impact, a big footprint digitally, so across the internet, across news media, with the BLM movement. And I saw a lot of people putting out a lot of content that was very pro BLM at the time, and you were one of these people that really kind of got involved, stuck your neck out, and really took some action in terms of using your platform to essentially make louder the voices of other people who were supporting and pushing and creating this BLM movement, and especially back within climbing. But what really impressed with me, and it pretty much stands out as being one of the very, very few people that have done this now, is that you've stayed consistent with this. Can you tell me a bit about what made you push so hard into that originally, and what's kept you consistent? Because I think that really stands out, because a lot of people did the easy thing. They posted up some black squares, they said some good stuff for about a week, and then I never heard anything else. Why are you different?
So okay, so I think initially, as I learned, but like you say, that it was suddenly a very significant thing on social media, which is, I suppose, the first real understanding I had of the scale of what systemic racism meant. I then, as I think a lot of people did, started reading more about it, and I started understanding a lot more than I thought. To be clear, I wasn't like racist before all this stuff went on or anything, but I thought I was fairly well educated, and I knew this stuff. And then the more I read into it and the more I understood about what was going on, I realized the depths of what white privilege and systemic racism mean. And I then started thinking about how I would be able to best use my white privilege to benefit more diverse groups and people who don't have so much white privilege. And I would view myself as someone who, I'm born into a middle-class family. I'm white. I'm male. I live in the UK. I have a lot of privilege in just those things. And one of the things which I've been able to build with my privilege is a cool Instagram platform with lots and lots of followers. And so I think, again, I was reading lots about it. And whilst I did at first, I started I was leading some discussions, and we talked on my Instagram stories. We had a big long discussion about the Winston Churchill statue, and we talked about the Fawlty Towers episode, and we talked about some really interesting stuff. And I really enjoyed that, and I really like having these discussions. And I think it's good because maybe that's relatable for lots of my followers because they know me. But then at the same time, I realized surely a much better way to use this platform is to amplify the things which, I'm learning all this stuff from other accounts that I follow and from books that I'm reading and all this stuff. So surely a much better way of doing this, instead of me getting more publicity from posting all about this stuff, then no. I'm supposed to hand it over to somebody else, and then it amplifies what they're doing, which was the whole aim of it. So yeah, as I said before the call, it feels like the first useful thing I've done with my platform ever. It's nice posting videos of dinos and stuff, but this feels like a genuine positive impact that I can make, and I'm really happy to be able to do it. Like I say, it feels like I'm very lucky to have this platform in the first place, and so it feels like the bare minimum I can do is share it and allow it to be used this way. So yeah, that's mostly it, really.
And what keeps you consistent with it? Like, I know I don't want to overstate this, but I think it really stands out because it was easier back last year when it was topical to do this stuff. Now it is not easy. It's coming back to that status quo where we were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. What is there at that core value? I'm really interested in it because I love these things that stand out to me.
So I think part of it is that whilst there has been some negative response to it, mostly people have messaged me saying how much it means to them that they're seeing this on an account that they follow, or even better, sometimes when people say, I hadn't realized until I heard this, I didn't know about this person until they were on your platform. I didn't know of that viewpoint until I heard them talking about it, and I've now changed my mind. So seeing those, I'm like, well, clearly this is a good thing to be doing. I mean, maybe it's the same challenge thing as before, that when I get a negative response, I'm like, oh, that's a micro failure. And then when I have other people saying, oh, I changed my mind, I'm like, wait, that positive, it's that cycle again. So I think it's partly seeing that it's had at least some positive impact. And also I think there is a good deal of knowledge that, the standard trap that I'm really trying not to fall into is that cycle of seeing a horrible thing and having an emotional response, talking about how horrible it is, telling everyone how horrible it is, and then gently lapsing back into apathy until the next horrible thing happens, and then the whole cycle starts again. So I don't want to fall into that trap. So I'm trying to keep it as consistent as I can. The difficulties I've had with it, though, are then that there are a lot of causes that we should post about online. I've thought all this stuff through as well, so I'm quite content and happy with sticking with diversity within climbing is a lane that I can be really impactful in, and one that I climb a lot and I work in the climbing industry. It's something I know more about. Someone was giving me a hard time once on Instagram saying, oh, climbers and diversity, is this really the biggest thing you could be talking about? What about the education system? What about this? What about China and slavery and all the horrible things going on in the world? And I sort of thought it all through, going, yeah, man, I do feel bad about all those things. You're right. Maybe I should post about that. But eventually I was, no, this is the area that I can actually make a difference in. And so far I've seen I'm making a difference in. So yeah, mostly it's a combination of that, of not wanting to become apathetic about it and seeing that it's doing some good. I want to start including more diversity and having more power climbers and some transgender climbers coming on as well. But I'm at least wanting to keep it consistent. I'll do these as regularly as I can. I wish I was doing them every Tuesday still. I started off doing them every Tuesday. Now, if I'm lucky, I do it once a month, but I'm going to try and keep it as consistent as I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. It's really, really awesome.
Thanks, man.
As I said before, I think it really sticks out. And, know from my perspective that if something now is particularly hard to do and really stands out, that actually means your impact is even more significant now, because it's noticeable and it stands out from other stuff. And I think that's really good. And, I'll always say this, that anyone who actually gets into, a niche, focuses down, sticks to their path and does something consistently through, will have an impact and will win through with whatever change they're trying to make, whether it's with themselves or with others, whatever that might be. And that's a sort of tried and tested method in life that works. And as you said, there are a lot of problems out there. And if you, Louis, were trying to deal with all 15 or how many there are all at once, you're going to be so diversified with not enough energy, not enough focus to be able to do all of them, that actually, I think personally, I still argue that it's better to pick something to be effective on, make an impact and go for it. Because there is only one human behind every human,
Exactly, man.
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, thanks so much for, spending an hour with me chatting about all things climbing and performance and stuff like that. And it's been, again, just nice getting to know a bit more about you behind, the cut-loosing, campusing maniac from down in London. I hope everyone's enjoyed listening as well.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure, Tom. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to listen to the coming episodes. And thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, no problem at all. And last thing is, where can people find you on socials? What's your handles and stuff like that?
So best one to find me at is on Instagram. If you search for Captain Cutloose, that's my Instagram handle. I'm not really on Facebook much, and I've got a YouTube channel coming out soon, actually. But for now, keep an eye on the Instagram, Captain Cutloose, and I'll see you all there.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much for that, Louis.